For a very long time, I have been haunted by a specter, a lone figure who graces the spines of strange novels that accumulate in used bookstores, only to be whisked away as violently as the sea gave them to me. This dome-headed man, draped in skulls and garish armor, is known by one feared name, Mr. John Space Marine, and I do not dare ask what it is he does. Okay, so look, I have a really approximate knowledge of Warhammer 40k, which I'm going to go into before I cover the rest of the books, or book. And by book I say this one right here, because I still friggin' own it, and it is in fact 3 books in one, but as you can tell by my little bookmarks here, which are very cute cat-shaped ones, I only read one of the 3 books in this trilogy. So, yeah. My lack of experience of Warhammer 40k became very notable among my group of friends, the impish tricksters of the Mortal Engines fan server that I call home, and finally, one day, Night Lords the Omnibus was delivered to my doorstep, waterlogged and basically the size, shape, and weight of a brick. And it became thus my burden, unable to fit on any bookshelf, too awkward to carry around, haunting me with its generic name and absolutely threatening page count. But, you know, I knew, like Archangel Michael, one day I would draw back my sword, stamp on the beast's neck, and, hopefully look really cool doing it. Except, well, not really, because I really could only read one book out of these ones, which is called Soul Hunter, but we're just gonna call it Night Lords. And, well, I did my best, is what I'm going to say. A fun fact about the person who mailed this to me is that they, and I'm going to censor as much of information as I can, as much as possible, they work for the British government, which means that if you live in England, your tax dollars went to me obtaining this book. The funds of the great British government system eventually led to a certain person who works for the government mailing this to me without much warning, without much consideration for my mental and physical health. This was an attack on me by the British government. Warhammer 40k is this gigantic franchise with so much lore, and as I say, I read this book completely blind, meaning I'm going to tell you my knowledge of Warhammer 40k going in, I'm going to tell you what I learned as I did it, and I'm also going to tell you right now, ahead of time preemptively, I know a lot more about Warhammer 40k now, so if you're somebody who's going to be upset about incorrect facts about the Warhammer universe, well, just let it be known that I know more now, and I'm going to bring in a Warhammer, a real hammerhead. I'm gonna bring in my friend who's on the couch who knows about Warhammer and who hopefully is not super picked up by the audio on that, to correct some of these things at the end, and we're all going to have a real lesson on everything that I got wrong. That is my warning ahead of time. So yeah, pour out the cup of your frothiest gene seed and let me tell you a tale of guns, men, bigger men, and some guy named Conrad Kurz, who is at least one of my subscribers' personal blorbo. The rhino's name in High Gothic was Carpe Noctem. Seize the night. It's page 180. Warhammer is, secretly, a game. You play it with little figures on a tabletop, and you make them fight until someone wins. I can't swear to you much more about that. Do you have cards? Do you roll a d20? A d6? There are endless sets of these little guys with new figures coming out frequently, and it has to be assumed that they all come with, like, an info sheet explaining all their powers and abilities, I assume. With such a long history, probably, and so many little guys, definitely, it staggers the mind to consider if it is at all balanced. What I do know is it is very costly. The figures are so expensive, and the people who play and collect are probably spending so much money on it. The fact that there are new sets coming out means that there is an inevitable draw of power creep that makes the idea of tournament-level play surely almost entirely pay to win, which is a weird term to put to a tabletop wargame, which is what Warhammer 40k is, probably, but it is also an extended universe. And in the world of Warhammer 40k, this is my knowledge going in, it is the year 40,000. That's what the 40k stands for, which is a number so ridiculously far-flung that it subverts the notion of being in the future, our future. And it just kind of derives into pure fantasy. I mean, 40,000 years in the future is insane. It's set in space, on countless worlds, where humankind has singled its existence into just being a religious army that worships a god emperor. People only care about war in this world, and there are 50 million subcategories of shooty boys out there for one to collect. I mean, there's edgy boys, Catholic boys, ultra boys. All of them love the god emperor and they hate aliens, which is something I was really shocked to learn very recently exist. Some of the boys, they hate the army. And there's literally a 50-book plus series called The Horus Heresy about all the little shooty boys who hate the military. And the best of all of these boys are the Space Marines. These guys are very tall and they don't have sex. This is about all I knew going in. The core tenets of Space Marinehood. Tower over your enemies and, no freaky business. I was sincerely unsure if women existed in the Warhammer universe. I mean, I'd heard that they were space elves, so I assumed that there were hot space elf women out there. But space marining seemed to be a man's job. I wasn't sure if humanity had evolved past the need for women. I was also sure that there were orcs, which is like orcs, but they have a K in the name, because, different. And these are guys who have extreme psychic powers that make things fly and shoot by believing hard enough. And it's all really, really funny as an idea. I love the idea of the orcs, which is why they're not mentioned once in Night Lords, because Night Lords is not that kind of fun little book. We hunt, Uzoth and Zarl said at once. We kill them, Zarl added. We feast on their gene seed, Uzoth finished. Page 21. Before I can explain Night Lords to you, I need to tell you all the stuff before Night Lords. This book also has to do with all of this prehistory, and much of it feels like getting Lego bricks thrown at you if a new vocab turned every single page. But at least I'm thankful that there was some recapping of history. And again, this is roughly my understanding at the time of reading the book as a complete outsider to the world. So, 10,000 years ago, I think, the God Emperor is greatly worshipped immortal guy, and he has 20 children. Inexplicably, he then loses all 20 of his baby boys to somebody who just takes all these little kids and just throws them among the stars. Each one of the special little baby boys goes to a different planet where their eugenics, proves them the superior being and makes them a great leader, until the Emperor eventually finds all of his sons again. One of these special boys is extra special. His name is Conrad Kurz, which is the stupidest looking and sounding name. Though, admittedly, all of them do have really, really silly names, so maybe me picking on Conrad Kurz is a bit unfair. But Conrad Kurz, he is very special, he is extremely cool, and he is extremely edgy, because you see, Conrad grew up with no surrogate family, entirely feral, on a planet made entirely of a daylight-lacking city. This planet was super grim, and because there was no light, everyone was doing crime all of the time. Untouched and uneducated by human means, little Conrad grew up in dark alleys of Nostradamo, and he grew a very staunch moral code. This boy, the special boy, hated crime so much, and with his superior genes, he started murdering every single person who did crime. He murdered them all so good, he became known as the Night Haunter, and everyone was so scared of how good he was at murder that they stopped doing crime. And this is because human beings suck. All human beings love crime. And the only way that human beings cannot do crime is if we are scared that somebody's going to murder us for doing crime. And I hope that you can tell I'm slightly joking there, because this is a ridiculous idea, but this is what the book believes. The book in general has this view that the world is dark and angry and gritty, and it thinks that it's being brutally honest and not just extremely edgy, which is what it is. So the Night Lords, as a faction, follow Konrad Kurz' philosophy, that fear is the only true law, and they do this, philosophy following mostly through the medium of murder and violence. But I am getting ahead of myself with that, because we're not talking about the Night Lords, we're talking about Mr. Konrad himself, Mr. Kurz, as we call him. Mr. Kurz, whatever the Emperor's last name is, because I guess that's his dad. Let me read you a bit from Kurz's special little backstory, okay? Fear, primal and true, was something the young god understood too well. He saw its uses and applications, and he saw how those in the thrall of terror were so much more pliant and obedient. In those dark streets, he learned the lesson that would shape his legion. Humanity did not need kindness, indulgence, or trust in order to progress. People did not comply with law and live lives of order out of altruism or shared ideology. They obeyed society's tenets because they were afraid. To break the law invited justice. Within justice was punishment. He became that punishment. It's page 157. So, the Emperor finds all 20 of his missing sons, and he makes them all found their own brigades, which all have funky little names, like Night Lords, Blood Angels, Luna Wolves. However, soon comes a great 50-book-plus spanning schism. One son, named Horus, has a heresy. I'm not entirely clear on what this is about, but I believe he and some of the other legions decide that the Emperor has reigned too long and is too into becoming god now or something, as opposed to being really, really into war, which is they all have to be into war. This is Warhammer, and the Emperor's not enough into war, so they want to kill him. Konrad and his Night Lords are on the Emperor-hating side, which then becomes the losing side and the bad guy side. Konrad Kurz is willingly assassinated. The remaining Horus Legion changes its name to the Black Legion, and they get really into black magic and psychic powers, which is evidently a thing in the Warhammer universe. Well, the Night Lords lurk around with severely weakened numbers, just sort of faffing about doing random kill sprees while they hide in an interdimensional hole for 10,000 years. That's where our story begins. Hey, brief aside here. What's up with this timeline? Does Warhammer realize how many years 10,000 is? And then how long 40,000 is? Like, the plot of the book, the plot of Night Lords, or Night Lords 1, takes about 2 months by my check. Space Marines are effectively immortal until killed, so most of the cast is about 10,000 years old. And that's, like, absolutely ridiculous. Consider human history for a hot second here, okay? Human civilization's entire history is roughly approximately less than 10,000 years old. Yet in Warhammer, the universe is very, very static. Nothing appears to change significantly in any way between centuries, and all the important moves are played by immortal soldiers with endless patience, lifetimes apart. Like, to make it make any sense to me, why don't we just make it Warhammer 0.4k? Or, maybe even just Warhammer 4k? May I now present to the court the plot of Soul Hunter, Night Lords 1. A Night Lord named Talos is gifted with prophetic seizures, just like his Primarch, or dad, Konrad Kurz. But also not his biological dad, Konrad Kurz, it's a genetic dad. I haven't explained Gene Seed yet, and let's just let that one simmer, okay? Gene Seed. Just think about it, okay? So, Talos sees a vision of coming conflict that guides him to pick up a few hundred servitors, which are these robot human slaves, and a navigator, which is a genetically modified human who could interface with spaceships to guide them through the void, and is also a slave. Talos is the de facto leader of his First Claw squad of Night Lords among Zarl, Uzas, and Syrian. His actual leader is the Exalted, a former Night Lord who has since fused with his chair to lead their spaceship, the Covenant of Blood. The Exalted resents Talos for being a prophet and a natural leader. It also should be said that the human robot, not human robot, she's the navigator, the genetically modified human who guides spaceships, is the one woman in this book. So yes, there is a woman in this book. Ooh. The Night Lords are ordered around by the War Master, who I believe is the head of the Night Lords. There's a lot of titles and names, and it's extremely easy to lose track of the military hierarchy here. So, the War Master orders the Night Lords to go to a planet and fight some Emperor-loving guys. They go do that, using their superior skills and epic strategies, and despite being outnumbered and outgunned, they just do a great job. They're that cool and good at murder. On this planet, a prison, the leader of the Black Legion demands to talk to Talos. His name is Abaddon. The Black Legion and the Night Lords aren't really allies anymore, but they're also not enemies. They have some differing philosophies on, like, black magic. So, Abaddon wants Talos to join his team because Talos is great and an accurate prophet, where Abaddon only has the current rank of these black magic shitty wizard seers, unlike, Talos, who's having the best seizures ever. Talos refuses, so Abaddon gasses him, which is the one thing that is immediately able to knock out the super soldier like a light. And in a fuzzy dream, Talos wakes up naked, surrounded by 4 versions of himself. Each wears some messed up version of his armor and or face, and each one is a literal god, something which I didn't know until this point existed in this universe, and just casually everyone knows, yeah, there's some gods out there, they're real. So the first god is like, hey, I can grant you power, and Talos refuses. The second god is like, hey, I can grant you future sight, and Talos is like, I literally only have that, but mine is even better than yours because it is an evil magic. The third god is like, hey, I don't know why I'm here, I don't care for you, bye. And Talos is like, who even ordered you here then? The fourth god is like, hey, one of your friends is a follower of mine, bye. And Talos is just like, hey, bye. It's this really long chapter where absolutely nothing happens. Let me read you a bit about it, okay? I was summoned here, it said, but you will never be one of my champions. I have no use for you, and you have no will to wield the power I offer. Who summoned you? One of your kind wove his pleas into unspace for a flicker of my attention. A magus, begging into the warp. The figure faded, taking its rank stench of oblivion as it went. That's just a small little excerpt because it's from page 144, and I just found the notion of a god kind of just saying, I don't want to be here, bye, to be extremely and probably entirely unintentionally funny. The idea that a god would just show up and be like, screw you, and then the other guy's just like, I don't even know why you're here. It's really, really funny to me. This is the kind of humor I have to carve out of the Night Lords universe, okay? So, it turns out Abaddon made one of his cultist buddies invoke these gods to Talos to try and tempt him into dark magic, which completely fails, obviously. Meanwhile, the Night Lords have left the planet, leaving Talos and his 2 slaves behind. His 2 slaves are in trouble, as they are attacked by escaped prisoners. The man is torn to shreds, and the woman is obviously abducted. Talos goes and, coolly, epically, violently hunts and murders them, as usual. A couple weeks later, the team is on a planet run by robots, fighting a giant dog robot. They do some, epic, cool, sick, smart tricks, and they win without a scratch, as per usual. They hate their boss, and the War Master sent them here. They hate that, because their whole thing is fear, and robots can't feel fear. To help win the fight, Talos decides to order the resurrection of a long-dead space marine into a giant robot body. Every time anybody else has tried to resurrect this particular guy, he's refused to go into that robot body. But it works for Talos. The Exalted, their boss, is very wary of how cool Talos is and tries to get one of his guys, called a Terminator, to kill him and Mr. Resurrection, but it fails. Everyone goes down to the robot planet to fight, with the Black Legion now joining up. Everyone kills very well and cool and, like, good for a while, but Talos has a vision. The Emperor lovers are coming in, like, 10 minutes. So everyone has to flee Robot Planet immediately, despite the Black Legion being like, please don't flee Robot Planet. They fight for a bit, and they do some, like, cool, epic, smart, etc. stunts, and they escape. Meanwhile, in the epilogue garden, some girl talks to some girl about something. The end. Well did Vral remember his disappointment when the Exalted's plan to whore Talos off to the ruinous powers failed so completely. Page 213. Soul Hunter is not really a book. Perhaps it feels so much like that because of just how I read it as part of this greater omnibus. It's a third of the full story, but it represents, in theory, a full book that would have been sold alone and promoted alone. The Plot of Soul Hunter, however, makes one kind of wonder about that full book theory I have. There's these overly tedious, long action scenes that feel like toy commercials, like, ooh, the Mechanist Titan sounds so cool. I wonder if it comes with Inferno Gun blasting action. Maybe if I'm lucky, the Thunderhawk Blackened with Land Raider accessories will be in stock too. And all of that kind of toy commercial stuff is matched with this very dull dialogue and personality-less characters. Talos is so incredibly dull as our lead. He feels like he comes from a Christ allegory. The rest of his buddies are identical beyond being, like, literally they're semi-clones of the same man, but also they're just identical. And the cast is rounded out with 2 slaves who come in the flavors of miserable and girl. The actual plot, to strip it down, is that Talos has a vision that there will be a battle. They go to the battle, and they leave after a few hours because the bad guys show up. This is stretched over 300 pages of small text and wide pages. I can't say that this was a good book or a bad book, definitely, but it was not a book I enjoyed beyond the experience of tackling the constant weird lore additions. At times, Soul Hunter diverts to talk about a scene from 10,000 years ago that is just as slow-moving, and the action set pieces really do feel like playsets, probably inherited from the fact that this is a wargaming game. There's absolutely no character development or deeper psyche going on, no internal feelings or greater elements at play beyond, the cosmic daddy issues with this faux Roman twist. It was an absolutely boring slog. And, it's really hard to say that at the same time because this book is actually one of the better regarded Warhammer books, actually. A lot of people like it. It's not the best entry point to the series, I've been told. It's just what it was sent to me. And also, it's such a weird book as it is, the writing, the everything else about it, that it doesn't feel like a book in a lot of ways, and it almost feels unfair for me to say this is a bad book, because it's such a non-book in so many ways. It was a curse to be a god's son. Page 31. Talos, as a lead, is very odd. He is uninteresting and unchallenged, and that is a fault the entire cast shares. There's no significant challenge to this group of apparent underdogs. They're all perfect assassins who are very cool, scary, skilled, etc., but they run a ship low on supplies and only have a handful of members. There's this constant reminder that they're past their glory days and suffering for it, but also they don't seem to suffer for it very much. I mean, their armor is scavenged pieces, and the gene seed, the gene seed is running low. Despite this, the Night Lords are unmatched against everything around them. Even their dad, Conrad Night Haunter Kurz, was so cool and powerful he had to willingly let himself be assassinated. The 2 losses in this book, roughly, are when they walk into a trap and they all walk out unscathed, and then at the end, when they flee casually from the Empire. Those are the only 2 losses, and even though they're not really losses. Neither of these feels like events where the Night Lords are really threatened, and at every step they're coming up with some genius high IQ strategy that leaves their opponents completely clueless. Talos, of course, is the poster child for this. He's the most level-headed of his crew, in that he isn't an annoying bastard, but he holds no other personality besides this. He has special visions that are much better than your inferior, evil special visions. He wields a relic sword that he won from the blood angels named Aurum, which is much better than your stupid chain swords. Talos knows all of the best moves, and he kills all of the bad guys. Very good. I think my point, to be clear, is that it just isn't very interesting to read about a guy who has everything going for him. Just a guy who has a series of successful days and battles, and then continues to be even more special than before. It's the most generic kind of wish fulfillment character type that you see in fiction. Really cool guy has a really cool day. Despite being a giant mutant, we are also constantly reminded, that he'd be really hot if he was human, and that he looks like a Greek statue under all that armor. The world and lore of Soul Hunter is intriguing. I mean, it's a world in stasis, it seems. It's this world where humans are now ants to the immortal giant spacemen who control the universe. I mean, what is life like here? Like, what do people become? People who aren't giant spacemen. We have that technique where the author does jump to somebody about to die a large number of times in this book, and the glimpses we see of mortal humans doesn't actually add very much. Everyone's really into crime and being horrible. That's kind of what regular people are up to these days. Some people get mutated into things not as powerful as space marines, like navigators or mutants. And there's a lot of slaves. I really didn't expect the slave thing to be part of this world. I was quite taken aback the first time we met the slave characters, who are Septimus and Eurydice/Octavia. I guess the reason would be that I find slavery a difficult topic in fantasy fiction, probably because slavery is a difficult topic in not fantasy fiction. It introduces this extra level of, hey, wait, our heroes are slave owners. I mean, I know that the Night Lords aren't heroes. I kind of have learned this since, at least, that the Night Lords aren't usually heroes. Usually these are the generic bad guys. But in this book, they are our heroes. We are following them. They're not even very good anti-heroes, besides the fact that they're also all slave owners. And they own slaves that sometimes they chase and kill in the lower decks for fun. Like, there's like 100 human slaves in the ship who are owned by our heroes and who live in squalid conditions full of fear and crime. Despite the fact that there's fear everywhere, there's still crime going on somehow. And that's just like this extra detail. The book's not about examining the social situations and implications of slave classes. It's about, big gun go pew pew. But it's this extra element everyone I've spoken to is always surprised by when I'm trying to tell them about the Warhammer world and my experience. Our viewpoint slaves are not great advocates for the system either. I mean, the world outside is so grim, dark even, that it kind of is one of the better jobs to be a slave. Like, even then, Septimus, the slave, confirms that he hates being a slave, and he reassures the other newer slave, Octavia, that she'll just kind of come to accept it. He's like, it beats my boring job delivering stuff. I friggin' hate the place, but it's better than being a courier. Constant life and death under my master sucks, but it beats Amazon. The constant miserableness of the universe posed by this book is unerringly grim, but mostly it's boring. I find this sort of depressing universe simply uninteresting. I'm not really shocked by rape or abuse and, God forbid, crime. At this point, I'm just bored by how it's this blunt hammer, just hammering away at the idea of human society and culture. Like, 40,000 years in the future, 40,000 years, the only thing worth talking about is legions of candy-coated immortals spitting on each other. Humanity is gone. Humanity doesn't matter. These guys don't even really count as human at this point. And everyone's just completely fine with this. There is no culture anymore. There is only war. Hammer. The writing of this book is notable. I can't really say it's good or bad, definitely, but it's a lot of nothing. I put the blame mostly on it being a Warhammer book. It reads like a book about Warhammer, not a novel, and the writing quality is lost in this weird haze of lore and armor tangents. The author's language is very samey. I mean, things are just dark and gross and bloody and there's skulls everywhere. But again, I don't think I can point to the writer. I think that just goes with being a Warhammer book. It is extremely distinctive, though. Half of my sticky notes by the end were just notes of writing quirks, because the book wastes so much time being the same. I became increasingly compelled to join in and write my own Warhammer fanfic. It's not that hard because half of the terms sound generated by a random generator, and all you need to do to add some tension is introduce a bigger, taller man with a bigger, scarier sword, or knife sword. I'm realizing that a knife sword is actually just a sword, huh? Knife gun. Let me tell you about spacemen. Super soldiers of the future have a couple things different to us mortals. They have 2 hearts, 3 lungs, portholes, chemical castration, subdermal plating, acidic spit, and gene seed. They're also increasingly large. For every rank, assume at least 1.5 feet over 6 feet. They usually have shaved heads, muscles for days, and inexplicably would allegedly be hot if they weren't superhuman mutants. Space Marines reproduce by gene seed. This is a special artificial organ that goes into a young boy when he's like a preteen, and it injects him with everything he needs to mutate into a giant war machine, minus all the surgeries also involved. Making an immortal murderer is a very lengthy and expensive process, but even more so when you consider gene seeds. These gooey things are fully reusable, but also extremely scarce. For reasons I don't know, they aren't like mass-grown in labs. They actively need to be harvested from other soldiers in order to grow more soldiers. When you put gene seed in a kid, you're basically becoming their second dad. This is because, among all the other mutations, you also inherit a ton of the last owner's genes, which can include memories, or, like with Talos, prophetic visions, because it turns out Conrad Kurz also had psychic visions, and Talos inherited that from his gene dad. And if you're kind of catching something strange here, like how Conrad and Talos could exist at the same time if the latter inherited prophecy from the former, I don't really get it either. I think that gene seed organs sometimes, maybe randomly, or maybe chemically infused projects, I don't know, it can reproduce itself. I mean, the Emperor had a bunch of sons, and that means all 20 of them have some gene seed from him, I think. All the sons have legions, which use gene seed from their gene dads. It's not really explained in this book why gene seed is in demand if it can reproduce like this. It may be like a privilege for some soldiers, like only the best get to, give gene seed birth to more sons, I don't know. But the Night Lords definitely bemoan their lack of troops a lot. And if you think that I could spend a long time on the wiki Googling this information, you're correct. However, I will not, because this is a review of me talking about it blind and based on what I just learned reading the Night Lord's book, okay? Gene seed is analogous to, it's a very valuable resource. It's because of this fact that the scary dudes over at Night Lords frequently threaten to drink it because it's that valuable. Here's a quote, one of my favorite quotes. "I will eat your gene seed," Uzas grunted, "after I claw it out of your throat with my bare hands." It's page 270. Okay, not drink, they eat it, whatever, but it's still really funny to me. It's still what I'll take away. I'm still always gonna think, God, these guys love drinking gene seed. That's what they're all about. They love drinking that gene seed. The universe may be war, murder, death, kill, crimes, war, but we'll always have gene seed. Hi there. Hey there.
Hi.
Hey there, hammerheads. That's what they're called, right?
No, don't
Okay.
ever call me that again.
Sorry, okay. And my beautiful introduction to this is I have no plan about any of these things. So in the many months since I actually read Night Lords, the veritable brick over here, I know a lot more about Warhammer now, and part of that is because I have, the curse has spread, where basically I read Night Lords and I put it down and I was like, I'm done with this. I don't want to read any more of the series and I'm done with this. And then somebody very irresponsibly that I know, who might be in screen right now, do you want to talk about your journey?
Oh, God. Okay. No.
No, okay, you don't have to. You basically got into reading about the not the Night Lords, the Warhammer lore.
I had to start with the Night Lords, and then I went further beyond.
Yes.
And
and so you have you've experienced a lot of the lore, and you've read multiple of the books at this point.
Yes.
And so I thought I was done with this, and instead now, Warhammer is something that pre-D&D we all just we come together and we chant Warhammer, Warhammer.
That's what we do. That's
all we do to hype ourselves up before D&D, and this means that I have a very approximate knowledge of a lot of things, and you basically looked over the review that I've just read to correct some of the correct some of the things before anybody in the comments can.
Yes.
However, this is going to be at the end of the video, so I think that maybe some people are just going to leave comments.
Listen, if you're not going to watch the whole video in order to correct the law, then just
I know. Somebody's
some patience.
I'm going to have at least one comment that's going to be like, "How dare you say that there's Catholic boys? They're all Catholic."
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I don't really know how to start. I know that you basically have a bullet point list of everything wrong I have.
We'll just chat about these points.
I know, let's just talk about these bullet points.
So I'll do my introduction. The fun thing is, I haven't read Night Lords, and every piece of Warhammer lore that Crow knows is something I've told her. And I've just told all of my friends, because unfortunately Warhammer came and infected my brain, and then I had to tell everyone about it.
It's horrible, and it infected your wallet.
It infected my wallet as well, but we won't talk about that.
No, we're not going to talk about it.
We won't talk about
we're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about mini painting. I also paint minis, but I don't paint the Warhammer boys.
No. Right. So.
Yes.
John Space Marine,
yes.
He does a variety of things. Mostly he is a giant monk with a gun.
So the notion that he's a monk, I think that monks are meant to be non-violent.
I mean, you can say that, but they're monks. They don't fuck, they worship the god emperor, and they shoot things.
Just like real monks.
Love me, emperor.
Yeah, just like real monks. Yeah,
just like real monks.
Yeah, they got guns, they got chain swords, just like real monks.
They're allowed.
Yeah.
I see. They don't fuck unless
they don't
do.
fuck. Okay, I say that they don't fuck.
Unless they do.
So have you determined if they are in fact unable to? Because my interpretation of the lore was always that their dick is just either atrophied or just completely off.
I think they could fuck if they wanted to.
Well, they don't want to.
And they don't want to.
Because they love war.
Because they love war.
And they can't have sex with war.
However, there are Marines who do fuck.
Which is wrong.
And bad.
I condemn that.
we condemn Marines fucking in this channel.
They're not meant to.
They're not meant to, because the god of lust and perfection, Slanesh, basically did the equivalent of coming up to them in a dark alley, opening up their coat and going, "Hey kid, do you want to buy a sex drive?
Do you want
to have an attraction?
Would you like to have a working penis? It's me, a god.
It's me, the god of lust. Would you like a penis?"
So there are gods, and there's a scene where Talos is approached by 4 gods.
I was trying to work out from because I haven't read Night Lords, so I don't know which one's which.
Gosh.
I think the one who says
there's the blood gods there.
The blood gods there. I think the one who says I don't know why I'm here and you're not interesting. I think that's gonna be Nurgle, just based on the fact that he's very smelly.
I love your backward sword. No, we should have done this beforehand to determine which guy it is.
Yeah.
But because I still have my little dots here, the seeds of insurrection. God, the chapter names in this book.
The gene seed.
But how many gods are there? While
4
I look
of them.
for it. There's really only 4 gods.
4 of them.
Well, he's approached by 4 gods.
4 chaos gods.
Oh, okay. Wait, are there non-chaos gods?
There are the Eldar gods, who are the gods of the elves, but most of them are dead.
They're not really good gods, then.
No. Well, the thing is that all the elves, they fucked so hard that they created Slanesh. And then Slanesh ate all of their gods.
Oh, okay. Wait. So
This is lore.
So I love Warhammer lore. The thing that I've learned about it is that there's a lot of extremely funny things, and my approach to the Warhammer universe is that it's best understood as a like comedy, maybe a comedy of errors.
Yeah.
Like if you put yakety sax over it, I think the whole universe starts to make sense.
Warhammer is a farce, I'll be honest.
It really does feel like it. Even just reading it, and all of their goddamn claws.
Just a few more.
Yes, talk to me about it as I
Neither of
stare.
us play 40k. I have no interest in playing it. I just want to look at some Space Marines, maybe paint some stuff and read a book.
Yeah.
But it is
You're
played
such an intellectual.
I'm such an intellectual. Hello, intellectuals.
Yeah.
It is played with dice. It's specifically 6-sided dice. You have like 8 of them, and then you roll of them at the same time.
Okay, but that's a lot of numbers.
I don't know, man. I just walk into the Warhammer store, I see they've got dice, and I'm like,
my battery's running low. I don't care. There we go. Keep telling me.
Yeah.
So they roll the dice. There's cards.
There's cards. I saw some cards in there when I was in there the other day.
But what do they use the cards for? I love introducing you as an expert and saying, but what do they do? And you're just like, I don't know.
I don't know, because I don't play 40k, so I don't know
what they do.
I don't know what the cards are for. I'm sorry.
I assume that they keep track of all their special abilities.
I would hope so.
Oh, by the way, do they actually have they're not called hammerheads. They should be. But are they just called like Warhammer 40k fans?
Yeah, I think it's just, the Warhammer community.
They should have more fun.
They should have more fun.
Or like the 40kers, the 40 kings.
The 40 kings? There's 40 of us.
Yeah, the 40
and we're all kings.
Yeah, exactly.
All Warhammer fans are kings.
If they breathe, they're a thought.
But if they play Warhammer, they're a king.
Exactly, yeah, that's how we divide the world.
Yes.
What is next on your beautiful note? There's no way I'm going to friggin' find which
god
we can't
find it. That's fine. If you know in the comments which god is which, please post it.
They're definitely the Chaos Gods, because they're like trying to tempt him or whatever.
Okay, you said specifically edgy boys, Catholic boys, and shooty boys.
Yes.
They're the same boy. That's one boy. That's the same boy.
Every single boy?
Yeah, they're all edgy Catholic shooty boys. Even the ones who aren't Catholics, they're ex-Catholics. They've got a lot of guilt.
They have all that Catholic guilt.
They all have all that Catholic guilt.
They're still taking the aesthetics. The one thing I will say about Warhammer, for people who are completely unfamiliar that I've learned, I do really like how they have spaceships with cathedrals on them. That's pretty sick.
That's pretty sick.
That's pretty sick.
Although some of them, I guess the Noise Marines, they look like 80s.
Noise Marines?
Yeah, they're the music boys.
The rock and roll.
They just look like glam rock hair metal people,
the rock and roll
great.
space
I
Marine.
love the rock and roll space guys. They're lovely.
It's such a silly idea. How I know that people take Warhammer very seriously.
Yes.
And it's very hard for me to take it seriously because there's the hair metal.
This silence offends Slanesh, as we all know.
Yeah.
Aliens do exist, and elves are aliens. The main alien factions are the Eldar, the Tyranids, the Orcs, and the Tau. I've probably forgotten one. If you know which one I've forgotten, post it below, I guess.
Let's get all the comments just correcting Xander.
We are, correct me. Do it.
So the alien types are elves and orcs, because nobody has original thought after Tolkien.
And then bugs and communists.
Bugs and communists. The other two kinds.
Communists, they're socialists.
Socialists, yes, please.
Yeah.
The two other kinds of alien species out there.
Yes.
Bugs
and socialists. Yeah. Women exist.
Women exist.
Yes. They're the Sisters of Battle. And also there are women in the military. Sisters of Battle have the big silly titty armor.
Of course, yeah. Well, yeah. They're women.
Yeah, they have like the cups.
Yeah, of course they have titty armor.
Like the bowls on their chests.
Yeah, of course.
Do
they have spike nipples ever?
No.
Oh my god, that's horrible. Where's the spike nipples?
Well, sometimes some of them have like a fleur-de-lis on the nipple.
Okay, that's a little bit, but like
it's not pointing outwards.
Yeah, but they should. They're women in a sci-fi setting. They should have just.
You know what? It's time.
It's time for women in the Warhammer universe.
Spike. The Warhammer story. See, they've got dice, and I'm like,
my battery's running low. I don't care.
We were talking about titty nipples. They deserve them.
When you talk about tits, the computer does kill itself.
Oh no. Thank God these are all men.
Yes, no.
Thank God there are no women.
Well, okay, so
woman.
there's women in the lower ranks of the military, which
Yeah.
is one of the most confusing things in the Warhammer world to me.
Yes.
Is the fact that there are the Space Marines, which, by the way, are called the Astartes. Astartes. And Astartes and Space Marines, same thing, and they're on either side of the heresy.
Yes.
But then there's also lower, regular people just in the goddamn military.
The Imperial Guard.
Why?
Because they don't have enough Astartes to go around. They need a military.
Scroll to your notes and tell me everything about Gene Seed.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything on Gene Seed.
Oh god, yeah, no, doesn't want to read about the cum. Huh?
I don't want to read about
the neck cum, as we call it.
Oh god. Okay, fine. Where is my notes about the Gene Seed?
Good, okay, good. You do.
I don't know how Gene Seed works. I'm also too afraid to ask. I think it can be harvested from a space marine, like a sperm donation.
Yeah, I think that it's like
in the net,
and it I think it maybe doubles itself. I love the notion that, again, I've brought you in as my Warhammer, not expert, approximate knowledge friend. But the thing with the Gene Seed and stuff is that we just don't want to look it up.
I don't want to know.
I don't want it to be spoiled for me. How about that? The mystery of reproduction.
I mean, if you know exactly what's going on with Gene Seed,
don't.
Feel free to comment below.
No, don't.
Or don't.
I want the miracle of reproduction to be secret.
The miracle of Astartes' childbirth.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh god.
Okay.
I'm also sad that the orcs aren't in this book.
Oh,
that was just one of my notes.
The orcs are very great. I love the joke of the orcs. They seem like so much fun. And that's why they're not in Night Lords. It's because they're too much fun. The orcs are they make their weapons look really cool, and then makes the weapon better because they're all psychically so powerful.
They have if they believe in something, it becomes real. Hence why if orcs paint a vehicle red, it drives faster because they believe red makes things go faster. Because
that is the funniest thing. That's the best. And again, it's such a great comedy beat that it's not allowed in Night Lords. They're not allowed to have fun.
No, God forbid one of the Night Lords laughs. Alright, oh god, I had to start an entirely new section, a huge section to explain
the history. Okay, tell me about Mr. Emperor.
Okay, I will tell you about Mr. Emperor of Mr. Mankind.
Mr. Mankind.
Mr. Worldwide. Mr. 305.
There's no proof that Pitbull isn't the Emperor of Mankind, and that he's been disguising himself this whole time.
Okay, so 10,000 years ago, commonly known as 30k amongst fans, the Emperor walked among people. He was a human man.
Wait, okay, yeah, wait, no.
He was not worshipped.
Wait, is it more like 30,000 years ago our time, or is this just 10,000?
No, 10,000 years ago, which is commonly known as 30k.
Okay, their time.
That's when the heresy started.
Okay.
He didn't want to be worshipped, and actually worshipping him got you, beaten up in the streets. It wasn't... Yeah.
He wasn't actually a god emperor. I've been calling him the god emperor.
I've been calling him the god emperor. He's just the emperor.
He's not meant to be a god emperor. He hates that.
He hates it. He doesn't like it.
He finds it embarrassing.
Him not wanting to be worshipped actually probably started the entire heresy because he blew up one of his son's capital cities, Lorgar. Lorgar of the Word Bearers, for the religious boy of all of our shooty boys. Of course
he's called Lorgar.
He's called Lorgar.
Because he knows lore.
Lorgar Aurelian or something? Aurelian. That was it, Aurelian. Lorgar and his buds then started the heresy because Lorgar was like, oh god, what am I going to worship now? And his two advisor guys, Corferon and Erebus, were like, why don't you start worshipping chaos, my man? And he was like, that seems like a good idea. I see no possible downsides
I need
to this.
A new god.
I need a new god.
I was banned from worshipping my dad as god.
I was banned from worshipping Jesus, so now I'm just going to become a Satanist, I guess.
I feel like that probably has happened, I guess.
I think, yeah.
I guess.
There's some...
But instead of worshipping Jesus, it was worshipping my dad. And
my
dad. My dad doesn't want me to worship him, so I'm going to worship the devil.
I'm going to worship the devil now.
Oh,
Four of them.
They all have daddy issues.
Of course they all have daddy issues.
Because their dad is the Emperor of Mankind.
The best way I can describe the Emperor of Mankind is kind of like a hardcore Reddit atheist.
But he's God. No, he's not God.
He's not God.
Famously, he's not God.
He's not God.
He doesn't believe in God.
There's a really famous short story where he goes to the last church on Earth and basically has this epic debate with the last priest on Earth.
Oh, of course he does.
About,
if God was real.
If God's real and stuff, and worship and religion. And then he burns down the church at the end.
Of course he does. That's so epic cool of him.
And the priest throws himself into the fire.
Oh my god, of course he does, because he's so epic cool.
Because he's so epic cool.
he totally owned that. He totally owned that priest.
priest.
So hard. Absolutely
hard.
dunked on. Oh my god.
Yeah. It had the main reason the Emperor lost all of his baby boys. It has changed a few times. Some of them is either because the Chaos Gods were like, fuck you, and threw them all into the void, the warp even. Sorry, we keep saying the void, it's the warp.
Really?
It's the warp, it's called the warp.
Oh no, but they have void wars.
They have void wars. There's
in
a void
the warp.
There's a void shield.
Okay.
And there's a void, and there's a... Yeah.
No, they have void wars in the warp.
I don't know about void wars, I'll be completely honest.
It's when the spaceships shoot at each other. It's called void wars.
Just okay.
So one of the things that needs to be said about Warhammer lore as we give this amazing breakdown is that how old is Warhammer? Like the 90s at least? 80s. So
it's like nearly 40 years old.
It's friggin' 40k.
40k.
The Warhammer is so old that it has so many books and lore that it contradicts itself constantly. It's always rewriting itself or changing itself. A lot of it just doesn't make sense because it's written by different authors. I don't think that there was really a cohesive lore guide.
No, I mean, the thing that everybody says is like everything is canon, not necessarily everything is true.
Yeah, so that's really confusing, and that's just an excuse to make up for the fact that they did a really bad job making this lore work.
There's no Warhammer Bible.
No, and there's 800 different special terms to use, so pretty much anything you say could be the correct term, and who's to say, you know?
Who knows? So either
Tell me about the heresy.
Either the Chaos Gods decided to throw him in, or the mum of the Primarchs, Erda. She was a female scientist, also in charge of helping make...
The mum?
She's known as the mother as the Primarchs.
Okay.
Because she was the woman.
Did the Emperor fuck her?
I don't know. I don't think so. Feel free to disagree with me,
no,
but I'm not sure.
Did the Emperor fuck?
I think
he was a man.
He was a man, and he has been alive since, like, 8,000 BC.
Yeah, I mean, he's alive right now.
He's live now.
My favorite thing about Warhammer history is that it is our universe, like most sci-fi is, but with this one, it explicitly timeline crosses over with right now, which means that right now, the Emperor is among us.
And she was like, I don't want my beautiful baby boys to be used for war, so she flung them across space
but in the future,
to a better life. Apparently, according to Night Lords, a better life.
But in the future, there's only war. She can't just send them away from war. That's the only thing left.
It's the only thing there. They're always going to find it.
Oh.
No notes on explaining Conrad. You pretty much got that bang on.
Thank you.
Before the Primarchs got reunited with their legions, all of their legions had like their own symbols and colours and badges and things like that.
They're all special little boys.
And then a bunch of the Primarchs rolled up and was like, I don't fucking want you to do that anymore. Do this shit instead. So they had to abandon all that previous culture stuff.
It is really kind of messed up that all of the special baby boys got flung into space.
Yeah.
But the Emperor still made a legion for each of his sons.
Yeah.
But then when he found the sons were like, okay, so you've already made a full legion of guys for me, but I hate them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to redesign them.
Especially Conrad and Angron especially, they just started fucking murdering them.
He just killed all his original Night Lords.
Not all of them, but some of them.
Were they just not goth enough for him?
No, he hates being called dad.
He hates being called dad.
He hates the idea that I think a lot of his legion are like actual criminals.
Probably. I mean, one thing that also is an interesting question here, now that I think about it, the Night Lords, my impression always was that the Emperor is granddad, and that the family ranking goes Grandpa Emperor, special little boy son, the Primarch, and then all of the Astartes below that are like the children of the Primarch, basically, gene seed children.
Yeah.
But if the special little boys were in space, how did the Legion get made if they're his sons?
Oh, because he had, like, backup DNA.
He had backup DNA. Okay.
He had their DNA.
Oh, he was a dad without knowing he was a dad.
I think because the gene seed is created from the Primarchs.
It is,
and then they just sort of separately
keep
had
cloning
that in
it? Question mark. If they keep cloning it, it's so weird that it runs out. This is why gene seed is such a mystery.
Well, that's something I've got on here.
Okay.
They keep cloning it, which leads to
is it genetic errors?
Genetic errors, which is why a lot of the modern Astartes don't have acid spit anymore, which is sad.
Oh, that's really sad. I love their acidic spit.
Like a sad little pug.
Oh,
he's got breathing.
They're just continuously bred bat, you know. Mm-hmm. It's so cruel what we do to modern space marines. They can't breathe properly. Their faces are so
really
flat.
Irresponsible breeding.
Don't talk about breeding them. The thing is that their body forms are much too heavy, so they always wind up with arthritis. It's really cruel what we've done to the Space Marines.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, no.
Horus did have a heresy. I'm going to talk about the Horus heresy
Please
now.
tell me about the 53 book series, the Horus
60
heresy.
plus.
60 plus book
There's
series.
more coming out. There's more.
How long can this goddamn heresy be?
The Siege of Terror is like its own separate thing, and that's just like the end of the war. Is like it's the Siege of Terror, and it's God knows how many books long by now.
Is the city called Terror?
No, the
planet's called Terror.
The planet's Earth is called Terra now. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, Terra. Sorry, I thought
Latin for Earth.
Yes, no, I thought it was Terror.
Terror, yeah.
Like it was a spooky thing, and I was just like, that's the funniest thing you could rename Earth to.
The first thing, I got really confused about Terra and the Eye of Terror, which is the Eye of Terror, OR, is like a huge warp storm.
Yeah, that might be a Night Lords.
Yeah, and I always thought that the Terra, Earth, the planet, was in the Eye of Terror. And then I read some more, and I was like, "Oh, okay. So we're not just in space hell."
No. I mean, we are in space hell. I think that all of humanity has nothing left but war.
As soon as you get into Warhammer, you're in space hell, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah.
Tell me about Horus.
So because I've read False Gods, and I've read the first one, which I completely forget the name of, so don't at me. I can say that. What is a stupid reason? It's a goddamn stupid reason.
He doesn't like his dad. It's angst, right?
No. Yes. Dad puts Horus in charge. He makes him War Master. This is an important tool that will help us later. He makes him War Master, and he's like, okay, you are commanding my entire legions and stuff like that, while I go home to work on my antique model train set, which is how I'm explaining whatever the hell the Eldar webway is. And then Horus is like, why won't you tell me what's going on at home? And the Emperor is like, because you trust me. And
I'm retired.
I'm retired now. I'm retired from war now.
Yeah.
And then Horus gets very sad that the Emperor won't tell him about all this stuff, and he also has all these other issues because he was the first one who got found, and he had all this epic quality time with Dad, and then suddenly he had like 19 more siblings. So he has like epic eldest daughter syndrome.
Wow.
I know, and then he was like, he basically nearly immediately fell to chaos after having one bad dream where the forces of chaos were like, ooh, the Emperor wants to claim your victories for his own, and then he was like, fuck, okay, fuck him, I'm evil now.
Fuck it, I'm evil now.
Just like deal with your trust issues with your father like the rest of us do, Horus.
He had
start a shitty band or get into art or something.
He had one nightmare and he was like, I'm gonna go inside of the demons, fuck you, Dad.
Yeah, essentially.
Dad won't hang out with me because I have 19 other brothers.
We've Magnus, he tried to warn him, he was like, don't do this, and he was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Poor Magnus. He did get a bunch of his brothers to join him, and they all want the Emperor dead, as they believe he's trying to make himself god. I didn't actually know the Black Legion were just the renamed Lunar Wolves, so that's something I learned.
I think,
it does make sense.
I believe.
Okay, so the War Master. You talk about the War Master and Abaddon as if they are two separate characters. It's the same man.
I'm a little confused by the ranking system. Yeah. They talk about, like, War Master, and then there's
one War Master.
The guy in charge of the Night Lords is a different there's the Exalted, and I think the Exalted is in charge of the Night Lords, and he rolls up to the War Master, who is Abaddon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Abaddon,
whatever the
Abaddon.
Heck. He has a really big sword and he's very tall and scary.
He's got a Citadel Paints colour named after him.
Of course he does.
Black.
He's special. I have it. Yes.
Yeah, we all have it.
Yeah, we all have the Abaddon.
We all have it.
We've all seen the Abaddon Black.
Yeah. However, Abaddon, he was pals with Horus and was one of his baby boy space marines and was actually part of like Horus's epic council of 4 guys.
His BFFs.
Yeah, his BFFs.
Yeah, his
the Mournival. That's what it's called. The Mournival.
BFF
however, now he hates his dad, and he hates himself.
Oh, wait, so it's Horus's son.
It's Horus's boy.
Oh, his special son.
His special boy.
And Horus is dead.
Horus is mega dead.
Horus is
obliterated dead.
Horus can totally come back. So what happens in the Horus Heresy is, to my knowledge, after maybe 53 books, I don't know, he fights his dad and he loses.
Yeah.
He gets totally owned.
Yeah.
And his dad
obliterates his soul, so he can't be resurrected.
He'll come back.
He can't.
He could come back.
He can't.
And my favorite thing, too, about the Emperor of Mankind, I think one of my favorite characters, very special, edgy, horrible man who's alive right now. We could all find him. If we all work together, we could all find him. We could kill him right now.
We can stop it.
We can Humans stop this future. This is a prophecy. All the people who wrote books for the Warhammer universe, they are seers and they're trying to warn us. But, no, my favorite thing is that he's on his special retirement throne.
He is. He's on his special I do have, like, just one more paragraph about
yes,
Abaddon.
please tell me.
So, Abaddon hasn't actually done anything for a while, from what I can tell, but recently he did blow up Cadia, one of the main places humans are from. Like, people really liked that place. And they're very sad it's gone. Recently he's been chatting with a demigod of invention called to make something called the Silver Key. I don't know what that's for.
It sounds like, again, because they have like 8 million years of lore to cover, the main thing to progress a plot when it's been going on since the 80s is to just keep making up little MacGuffins and things and being like, it's the special silver key of the ancient races.
It's named after a H.P. Lovecraft story that allows a man to go back to his childhood or something. But
we're gonna get Horsey back. We're gonna get Horsey back.
We're gonna get Horsey back. Horsey heresy.
Horsey, as I call him.
Horse.
Yes, we're gonna get him back. He's gonna
get Horse back.
He's gonna go back in time to his childhood to bond with his father and then save his father. He's gonna go play catch with his dad one more time.
With his epic, huge glove.
Yes.
His claw glove. Catch.
It will be made of metal and cute lasers. But he's going to go back in time with the silver key to go have one last ball game with his old man. Heresy.
Play hacky sack with your old man.
And his granddad will be there.
And his granddad will be there. Speaking of granddads,
please,
let's talk about how the Emperor's throne is going to explode in like 100 years.
Talk about the Emperor. Let's just talk about him.
The Emperor of mankind is a perpetual, so he's an immortal man who can't be killed. He's like 9 feet.
He could be killed.
He could be killed.
What?
He's like 9 feet tall. He's currently kind of still alive on his throne, being kept alive.
He's on his life support
special chair that needs 1,000 psychers to be fed to it every single day.
We haven't defined like any of these terms.
Psychers are magic human people.
They find psychic people, and they don't like psychic people in this world. Some people are psychic, and it's disgusting.
Because you can get possessed by demons if you're psychic.
If you're psychic, you can be possessed by demons, just like in real life. So they round up everybody who's psychic, and God, there's a lot of them, because they have to keep feeding them to the Emperor's special life support chair so he can keep being a husk of a man.
I guess.
Is he talking?
No, God no.
Does he just sit on a big chair all day as like a withered husk?
Yeah. I mean, he recently, because Robert Gilman recently came back to the Warhammer setting. And he has spoken to Robert. He's spoken to Robert through like just psychic energy and also a small child, because they do like that, don't they? Ancient psychic beings.
They gotta have like a small child because it's like it becomes ironic. It becomes ironic. Like, I'm so old and here's a baby.
Here's a baby I'm talking to you through. So he doesn't speak, but he does communicate. ?
He just sits on a throne all day.
He does.
Why do we have him alive? This is taking so many lives.
Because he is keeping the lighthouse running. There's a huge lighthouse called the Astronomicon, which is the thing that navigators use to travel through the warp, and he needs to keep that operational, otherwise we'll all fall into chaos again.
He is a battery.
He is a battery.
The Emperor of Mankind is now just a battery in his special life support chair.
Which is going to explode.
Have they... Cool.
Yeah, I told you about this. It's... Because the Eldar technology that they used to make the chair. The elves
just
made
call them
the
goddamn elves.
The elves made the chair, and the Dark Elves, they made a deal with the people who work at the Golden Throne, I guess. They were like, hey, the chair is failing, do you want us to come like fix it? And then they did the epic heist to try and steal the Emperor, or at least part of his DNA, so that they could make a clone.
They could make their own special...
They could make their own special
anti-boys.
Anti-boy.
Girls.
But then it turns out that the throne is going to explode in like a century. And everybody in that story dies and doesn't manage to tell anybody else about it, so nobody knows that the throne is going to blow up.
I love that. I also love the idea of the epic heist to steal the Emperor's dead body.
the Italian job.
The
terror job.
The weekend at Bernie's.
The weekend at Bernie's.
Except he's a 9-foot tall mutant Goliath.
Dead Goliath man. This desiccated corpse of a man.
He's surprisingly light because he's been hollowed out by just the age. I also, why don't we just kill the Emperor and just feed a robot? No, there's no robots. Why don't we just feed the chair all of the Psyker souls and we just get rid of the Emperor and throw him in the trash?
I'm sure there's a good reason. I think somebody has to be in the chair.
Is he a figurehead at this point? Is that it? I guess they all love him. It's like for the Emperor is what they say. He's not God.
He's God.
He'd be so upset if they learned.
He would be very upset, and I think he is probably very upset.
Grandpa hates being called God.
I think the High Lords of Terror are mostly running things now. There's some bureaucrats in there.
It really is just your accent, but every time you say Terra, it sounds so much like terror.
Terror.
Like AMC's The Terror. So you just say the High Lords of Terror is what I'm
hearing.
The High
Lords of Terror. Sorry.
Which
the High Lords of Terror.
The High Lords of Terror sounds exactly like something that does exist in the Warhammer universe, though, because that is how they name things.
Yeah.
Do you have any more exciting notes for us?
Do I have any more exciting notes?
We've been here for an hour. Who cares?
Yeah. Okay.
This is, I hope, very educational and correct information so that you, non-Warhammer fans, I pointed the camera badly, you can now know everything about Warhammer. You are the expert. Go into Game Workshop and they will praise you.
Ask one of those men.
No, don't ask them. You can just tell them everything you've heard here today and they will say, you are the Warhammer.
40k. You've done it, Horus Heresy. You are the Warhammer 40k.
You've won the 40k. 40k Warhammers.
Oh god, I've just got another. We've talked about that one. I think the one who says, "Hey Talos, one of your pals is one of my pals."
That's the Blood God.
Going to be? Is that the Blood God?
It's so the Blood God.
I thought it was going to be Tzeentch because that's kind of Tzeentch's thing to be like, "Ooh, mind games."
No. He's like one of his friends. It's like Uzas or Zarl. They all have the silliest names. Is always like, blood for the Blood God.
And skulls for the Skull Throne.
Which I must say, I didn't realize was a Warhammer thing. I thought it was a Tumblr joke.
Yeah, I didn't realize where it came from.
I straight up thought it was a Tumblr joke when they were like, blood for the Blood God,
Yeah.
I just thought that was a silly little meme, and then when I read it in Warhammer, I was really devastated, because I was like, that's a funny joke, but now it's a Warhammer joke.
Now it's a Warhammer.
And it's been ruined for me.
Talos was actually a Space Marine medic. He was an apothecary. He was the one who went and harvested Conrad's gene seeds.
Oh, yes!
Yes, when he got his head cut off.
Oh, he an apothecary, aka the cum seed.
The cum seed. the cum seed collector.
Yes, as we call him. Picking up his dad's balls.
This man. No, you can't say that. This man carries the cum box. You are nothing. All I know is the fact that later in the series it's implied that Septimus and Octavius' son Decimus has Talos' gene seed. So
it's also Talos' son.
It's also Talos' boy.
They had a special threesome together.
And also, why did they skip 9? Shouldn't his name be like Nona Decimus or Novenary or something?
Maybe they had an extra son and that one just wasn't good.
We donated this son to the Night Lords. We donated this son to our slave owners.
Yeah, no. I think they escape slavery in the end.
They do, but one of them comes back and steals their son.
Yeah, why not? They're just like, you know what?
It's the grim darkness of the far future.
Oh my god.
There is only war.
In the far future, there is only war and grim dark and edginess and cool boys, and they're very big and they have very big guns.
They have very
and
big
bigger
guns
swords,
and big swords,
and then bigger guns,
and then bigger guns,
and the biggest guns out there. And they're very tall.
They're very tall.
Oh god, they're so tall.
These men are very tall.
They're really
and they have
really
no
tall.
ribs.
They don't have ribs.
They don't have ribs. It can't hold up the armor. They just have like carapaces.
Right, yeah, no,
skin.
they have subdermal plating.
Yeah.
I remember these things. But you know what? They're very big.
They can suck their own dicks.
They're very big. They can suck their own dicks, but they can't.
They won't want to.
No, because they only care about war.
They only give a shit about war.
And in the end, isn't that what this is all about?
I feel like we've all learned a great lesson today.
Closing thoughts,
Closing thoughts. There is only war.
And isn't that just...
Isn't that great?
Isn't that just it, man? In the end, the real war was Hammer inside us.
The heresy was inside us all along.